I've always wanted to visit Japan and experience the country's ancient culture and current technologies. I planned a 2-week trip specifically to visit Tokyo's bustling downtown area and the stunning views of Mount Fuji. I recall distinctly that it was the afternoon of March 11, 2011. I was in a little hamlet in Fukushima Prefecture's southern region, prepared to go for Tokyo. I was sitting on my hotel's balcony, taking deep breaths of fresh air, when a huge tremor shook me off the balcony and onto the ground. I had no control over my body, and even standing became difficult. After a few seconds, I noticed some windows shattering and neighboring buildings shaking. People began to flee in fear, and I became terrified as well. The most scary aspect, however, was that the quake appeared to be growing in strength, as if a giant was shaking the earth violently. The earth trembled, buildings swayed, and I could hear trees, poles, and other objects swinging. Some individuals began yelling and screaming, while others panicked and raced around, but the majority of people remained calm and sought refuge. I attempted to flee as well, but as I turned to leave, a massive section of wall collapsed on top of me, trapping me in the rubble. As I was pinned down, I experienced extreme pain and suffocation. Breathing became difficult, and I even risked having my ribs crushed. I felt immobile, unable to contact for or receive assistance. At this point, I had a sensation of desperation that I had never felt before. I considered my family and friends, what they would think and do. I reflected on how my life was coming to an end and how I would not be able to realize my unmet aspirations and plans. In this situation, I began to experience feelings of hopelessness and helplessness. I began to experience anxiety and loneliness, as well as a sense of impending death, which would be unbearable for anyone. Despite this terrible situation, I refused to give up. Tried to remain calm and hope to be found, even if it was only a fleeting hope. Kept reaching out and praying that I would live and be reunited with my family and friends. I refused to give up on life, despite my intense sentiments of hopelessness and helplessness. My consciousness gradually grew less clear. I began closing my eyes. I'm not sure how long it took. My weight felt instantly lighter, as if an invisible force had snatched me from the ruins. I was transported into a light that was so bright and pure that I felt peace and calm like I had never felt before. My body felt encompassed in this glow, like if a valuable item was being cared for. This light had a calming and relaxing effect, making me feel less alone and helpless. I heard a soft voice, one I'd never heard before, but I knew it was God calling to me. He assured me, "Son, it is safe here." That voice was quite kind. As I was encircled by that sound, my heart warmed and healed. I felt my anxiety and despair fade away, replaced by a greater and better power. In the light of that luminosity, I felt entirely healed and redeemed, both mentally and physically. The majesty and holiness of this light reminded me of the Bible's depictions of heaven. The intensity of the light did not make me uneasy. Rather, it gave me a sense of calm and tranquility. In the midst of the brightness, I saw a figure of unlimited power and love. The image of the figure got sharper, and I recognized it as God. Although I had never seen God with my own eyes, I knew it was Him, and my heart was filled with thanks and joy. God, and I communicated for a long time. I prayed to God, "Why couldn't you have prevented the disaster from happening?" God responded, "My child, it is not that I cannot prevent disasters from happening, but I also cannot prevent the free will of human choices." Feeling challenged in my comprehension, I inquired, "The free will of mankind to choose, what does that mean?" God responded, "When I created mankind, I gave them free will, a divine and valuable gift. However, free will implies that persons must accept responsibility for their own decisions and acts." I paused for a time before asking, But why should those innocent people who had no choice in this earthquake suffer like this? God remained silent for a minute before saying, "My child, earthquakes and other natural disasters are not directly caused by me. These are natural forces that act within their own orbit. But when these calamities strike, I will be there to help those who are suffering out of the darkness and give them courage and hope." Later, God led me to another place where I felt peaceful. Countless flowers and trees radiated fragrance and vitality. God led me across a beautiful meadow, and I saw my loved ones who had died. They were all dressed in white and appeared cheerful and calm. They looked at me with familiar, warm eyes as if greeting me. My mood was filled with indescribable excitement since I knew they were now well and pain-free. There I met my granny. She looked at me with kindness and concern, like she had always done. We hugged, and she assured me that she was always watching over me and by my side. She made me feel her presence and affection, which was quite comforting and relieving. In paradise, I also saw other family members and friends. My grandmother held my hand and said, "I'll take you for a stroll." The image in front of me astounded me. Tall palaces and towers stood on the distant horizon, emitting a brilliant light. They appeared to be made of pure gold, and each structure was intricately sculpted and adorned, as if straight out of a fairy tale. The palaces and towers are surrounded by large parks and squares. All varieties of flowers and trees can be found everywhere. The tree branches sway gently in the breeze, and flower petals drop down upon people's heads. There are some animals running and playing in the distance, as well as some flying birds soaring through the skies, giving people an unparalleled sense of harmony and freedom. People were enjoying the beauty of life in the parks and squares as they walked hand in hand and shoulder to shoulder through this wonderland. Everyone's face was filled with delight and contentment, as if they were all experiencing true life and love in paradise. Heaven's architecture and views are unimaginably beautiful. There, individuals can truly appreciate the beauties of life and feel genuine joy and love. I wanted to stay here and never go, but God's voice said, "Son, you need to go back." I turned around to see God. "Why, God?" "I want to stay here," I inquired. God smiled at me and said, "My child, you have an important task to complete. You must return to Earth and resume your life's journey. Your life has many more values and meanings, and you must fulfill them." I was perplexed, but God persisted. "This place is so beautiful, and I don't want to leave it," I replied. God smiled and nodded, saying, "I understand, son, but your moment has not yet arrived. You must first complete your mission on Earth before returning here. This is your true home, and you can always return." I nodded in understanding, feeling comforted and strengthened by God's words. I realized that, while paradise was lovely and calm, Earth had its own significance and meaning, and I needed to return to accomplish my mission. "Thank you, God. I'll go back and try to do my job," I explained. God smiled, nodded, and told me, "I understand, son. I will always be there for you, offering you support and direction. Now return. Your path through life awaits you." I bowed deeply before turning and leaving heaven to embark on a new path in life. As I returned to my body, I felt myself gradually plummeting. I felt the weight and pressure of my body, as if I were being dragged back into reality by some force. When I realized I was back in my body, I felt an incredible pain strike my body, as if a wire had been hooked straight to my nerve system. My body began to tremble, and I felt my heartbeat quicken and my breath catch. Then I noticed a beam of light gradually appear in front of my eyes. This light became more brighter. I felt my soul return to my body, and the light appeared to be a mystical force that reconnected me to reality. I realized that if I didn't do something, I might die. I started seeking for a source of water. At the time of the earthquake, I was on my balcony, and there happened to be a sprinkler nearby to water the flowers. drank every drop of water, and used it to soothe my throat. 2 days had elapsed. I was so weak that I could barely breathe. Just as I thought I was nearing the end of my life, I heard the voices of the rescuers. They eventually located me and used an excavator to get me out. Later, I was admitted to a hospital. Except for dehydration symptoms, I did not have any major concerns. An earthquake is a horrific tragedy that will take many people's lives and destroy their homes without mercy. I survived the earthquake, and it made me realize how fragile and valuable life is. I felt terror and sorrow during the earthquake, and it felt as if the entire world was crumbling. I'm very grateful that God was present and given me the motivation to keep going. When I survived, I was more affected and relieved than ever before. I learned how delicate life is and how much we need to cherish it. The days I spent in the ruins taught me more about myself and the purpose of my existence. People crave worldly possessions and authority, yet these are unimportant. What truly matters is our humanity and the care and assistance we provide to others. This incident left lasting impressions on me. I place a higher value on my possessions and respect life and others. Later, I recognized the magnitude of the earthquake. It devastated the lives and homes of millions of people. This earthquake killed thousands of individuals, including Japanese friends and strangers. I am deeply saddened because the loss of these individuals has caused irreparable harm to their families and their country. They are no longer with us, but we will never forget them. We shall remember their lives and sacrifices, as well as those who worked tirelessly and devotedly to saving lives. We are grateful to the rescuers and volunteers who demonstrated humanity during this disaster.